Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'll be teaching you how to make this super simple, easy to make garter stitch scarf. You will need to know the knit stitch for this pattern, and you'll need a size 11 or 8mm knitting needles, as well as a size 5 yarn. So without further ado, let's begin. Hey guys, so far those who are just learning knitting with me, this will be your very first knitting project. If you're just here wanting to make a simple quick knit regardless of your skill level, then this video is for you too. Today I'm using a color made easy by Lion Brand Yarns in the color Mineral Yellow, and I'm going to be using these wonderful Clover knitting needles, size 11 or 8mm, and these are the perfect size for this particular yarn. This is a size 5 weight, not 4 weight, and so it's going to make a nice, really chunky, comfortable scarf. You also need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle, and we will go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is make a slip knot, and then we're going to insert our needle. Now for the knitted cast on, we're going to use the other needle for this. You're going to insert the working hook up underneath the leg here of this first loop, and then using the working yarn, not the little tail, you're going to come around in between like you were knitting a stitch, pull that up, bring your other needle up underneath this leg here like that, and then bring that loop down on top to this needle here, and that will be how you will cast on. For my scarf I did exactly 32 stitches. You can make yours longer, you can also make yours shorter. It doesn't matter how many you want. The count of the stitches does not matter. We're going to be using only the knit stitch for this project, so math is not a concern. So just go ahead and put on the amount that you want for your scarf, and then we'll get started. Okay, so if you have done 32 stitches like I did, then this is what it's going to look like. Make sure you have the count that you want, because this is going to make a pretty wide scarf. This is going to make almost like a blanket scarf for you. The first thing we're going to do is enter the working needle into the leg here, make our first knit stitch, and push that up and onto the needle there. And then we're just going to continue to make knit stitches all the way across to the end of the row. Your very first row is always going to be a little harder because the stitches are a little tighter. So once we get past this row here, this foundation row, then the next row will be super easy to knit. You'll notice that the stitches over here on this working needle are a lot more loose than they are on the other, and that's exactly the way they should be. Try to keep your stitches a little close to the end of the needle on this side so that you can get them off easier. And also throughout this project I will be showing different techniques for knitting. I'll be using the English knitting, I'll be using the flicking method, and I'll also be using the continental method for those of you who like different styles. As I said, there's no wrong count. You can have as many as you want. Depending on the person you're making this for, maybe you want to make it for a child, then you would want to use less stitches. I would say maybe 20 would be good. Okay, now we're going to move into the next row. You're going to do exactly the same thing you just did in the foundation row. Up under the first leg, find your working yarn, and then we start. Now I'm going to be using the flicking method for this. This is how I normally will knit when I want it to be really quick. And you're going to knit all the way to the end of the row exactly the same way. Your stitches should be much more loose and much more easy to work. And I'm sorry y'all, this is a little hard on camera. It's much easier when it's just sitting in my lap. And the flicking method, if you're curious as to what that is, it's where your hand holds on to this needle and it never leaves the needle. Your finger does all the work. So your finger goes around and brings the stitch, whereas your fingers below here never leave the needle. So if you're doing English knitting, your hand never holds on to this unless you want to. So you're holding onto the yarn this way and bringing it around, and then you can hold on to the needle again. This method is much slower, so you might not be interested in that. Flicking for me is much faster, and to me it's a little bit more accurate. It helps me with my tension as well. And then the next row I'll show you how I do continental knitting for knit stitching. So go ahead and finish this row and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I'm at the very last stitch of this row. I'm going to go ahead and work it, and now my needle is free. Turn your work around, and then we're going to work back the other direction. Now I'm going to show you how I do the continental style. This is really great for people who like to crochet a lot and maybe were never able to pick up the English or flicking styles for knitting. Sometimes people have a hard time with holding the yarn in this hand versus the hand that they use normally for crocheting. So this actually was very easy for me as a crocheter. What I do is I pick up the yarn like this, I hold it like this, bring my forefinger up underneath the yarn and just kind of do this with it. Now my fingers are going to hold on to the needle here, and then I'm going to go ahead and go up underneath this stitch. This is the hardest one to do. You kind of let go of that yarn a little bit, get the needle up underneath of it, and then pull it through. And all the while your thumb is holding the stitch on the needle so it doesn't come off. And then you just let it go onto the other needle. And then you just keep doing that. Go up underneath, grab the yarn from behind, and bring it in. Underneath, grab the yarn from behind and bring it through. Under the leg, grab the yarn and bring it through. The first stitches are a little harder, so you have to kind of really work with it if that's the technique that you'd rather use. For this, I will say that continental knitting is much faster, so if you're looking at learning faster knitting, that is definitely the technique you want to learn. Either, continental or flicking, those are the easiest that I have come across so far. So anyway, you're just going to go ahead and knit this row as you would, and you're just going to knit every single row until you get the length of the scarf that you want. There is no right size, just make it the size that you want it to be. So go ahead and finish this row, go to the next row, continue knitting every single row, as I said, for the length that you want your scarf, and I will meet you when I am finished with my scarf. Okay, so as you can see, I am actually at the end of my yarn here. So what I'm going to be doing is adding in more yarn, and I'm going to teach you guys how to do this. Okay, so you're going to want your other needle, go up underneath that first leg there, and then grab your new yarn. So yes, you're going to need at least 2 skeins of the yarn that we started using. All right, so you're going to go ahead and make a loop with the tail in front, the working yarn behind, like this. You're going to put it around that back needle and then pull it through like you would a regular stitch. Now make sure that your 2 ends, okay, the end that you ended with and the one that you just added on are together. Pull them down and go ahead and make your knot here, because otherwise it will get loose and then your stitch won't be the size you want it to be. So go ahead and make the knot here. Make it kind of tight. You don't want it to be too tight because you want this stitch down here to be workable the next row. All right, so go ahead and get your ends out of the way, and working with your working yarn, we're just going to continue with the scarf. And I'm going to go ahead and let you guys finish and then get to the end, and then when you're at the end I will show you what we are going to do next. Okay, so I have a really good amount of length on my scarf so far, and I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is make mine into a cowl, because I typically do not wear a whole lot of scarves that have fringe on them and such like that. I usually give those away. But with this particular one, I like the color and I like the feel of it. It's very squishy, and I like the fact that it fits really any size person. So what I want to do is make mine into a cowl. But the first thing I'm going to do, of course, for the sake of this video and sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to bind off so that you can do this part with me. And then binding off basically just means that you're taking the stitches off. Right now these stitches are called live stitches, meaning that they are still workable, and if you were to pull your needle out right now the way that it is, you'd lose all your stitches. So we need to get the stitches off the needle, and the way we're going to do that is as follows. We need to make sure our yarn is in the back, as always when we do knitting, and we want to pretend like we're knitting. Okay, actually we're going to knit 2 stitches. So we're going to go and knit 2 stitches on this final row. And now to bind off, what you do is you go up underneath the first stitch here with that non-working needle, pull it up over the top of the other loop, and then you pull that loop off onto the needle. Now you've just decreased by 1. Now you're going to go ahead and knit again for another 2. The one here, you're going to pop that needle up underneath of that leg, pull it up over the other loop, pop that loop onto the working needle, and you have 2 gone. And this is how you're going to continue to do all the binding off all the way across. Do the knit stitch, go up underneath that first one, go up over the top of the loop, and then push that loop down on top of the working needle. Let's do that again together, because I know for a lot of you this is brand new. Okay, so make sure you knit 2. With the non-working needle, you're going to go over here up underneath the loop, pop it over the top, the loop that's still there, put it onto the working needle as such. And then just keep doing this. Always the second needle over, or the second loop over, you're going to pull up over the other loop like that. And this again is called a bind off. So you'll want to do this all the way to the very last stitch until you only have 1 loop left on your needle. So go ahead and do this on your own. You can always backtrack to where we started this, take down the timestamp of when I started doing the bind off, and go back when you need to. Rewatch it if you have to. It's very simple. There's nothing hard about it. So just go back and watch it if you need to, and I will meet you at the last 2 stitches. Okay, so I am at the end here where I'm about to knit off that very last loop, and I have 2 stitches. And just as we have with the others, we're going to go to that back loop there and pull it up over the front loop, and then we are done. Now we want to go ahead and get our scissors. And you want to cut off a generous amount, because we are going to be, well, I'm going to be sewing this up. If you are not sewing up your scarf, if you have it long and you want to leave it open to drape around your neck, and drape it around a couple of times, whatever, just don't worry about a really long loop, because you won't need it. Now, if you have a crochet hook available, I would use it here, but you don't necessarily have to. I've got this one right here. I'm just going to kind of use it, but pull your loop out and you can grab it like this, or you can use a crochet hook and go into the loop and grab that yarn and then pull it through this way. So either way it works, whichever works best for you in the moment. Tighten down that stitch just a bit, kind of push that down until you have the edge tightened. Okay, now your stitches are no longer live, they are now bound off, and you are ready to start sewing if that's what you choose to do. Or you can go ahead and add fringe, and if you want to add fringe, what you should do is just go underneath. So here's your bind off row. So you'll want to start with the row underneath that has more opening through it. And just find even spots to add your fringe. It really just doesn't matter where you go with it. So long as your fringe is even, nobody's going to see it, no one's going to care, no one's going to be looking closely at it. Only you know. And you know, handmade items, there's a lot of inconsistency in handmade. So, I mean, even if you have like indiscrepancies, like say in your fabric here, maybe it doesn't look like it's 100%, you know, maybe this stitch here isn't very tight, or that's going to happen with tension that you have with your hands. If you were doing this on a machine, machines have much more consistent tension, so you're probably not going to have those indiscrepancies. However, if you are using your hands, you know, our hands ache, they start to, you know, you lose the tension. So don't feel bad if that's normal. That's absolutely 100% normal for handmade knits. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sew mine up and make a cowl out of it. But you guys can go ahead and do whatever it is you want to do. You can, like I said, you can add the fringe, you can add pom-poms, whatever you want to do at the end of your scarf. I'm going to go ahead and end the video here so that you guys can do as you wish. And I hope that you guys will share your photos of your finished products with me. If you have any questions about the way we did this knit, go ahead and leave me a comment below, or you can send me an email at fibertheory@yahoo.com, and I will answer you back right away as soon as I get it. If you have any problems with the knit stitch, please don't hesitate to ask. It could be your tension, it could be maybe you're knitting too tight, maybe you're knitting too loosely, so that could be a tension issue. If you for some reason are having a hard time with the knit stitch, you can go back through my channel to where I teach how to do the knit stitch, and I will put that video at the end of this video here in the end card, so you guys can go in there and click it to watch it if you need it. And then you just come back and do this project. But I hope you guys will share your pictures with me. And if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you don't enjoy it very much, go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me why. Unfortunately, the thumbs down really don't do anything to help me. I don't understand why they're there. So yeah, if you have any suggestions for me, then please let me know. Otherwise, this particular project, I'm not going to finish off with you guys because I'm leaving it up to you to finish how you want to. Just so long as you understand how the fabric is made, how the knit stitch creates a garter stitch to make the end product. And I hope you guys love it and you wear it, and maybe you make some for other people. And yeah, so there you go, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and for all the latest updates on future projects, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the handle @FiberTheory. Remember to subscribe and hit that bell icon for all future project notifications. Have a great day.